Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am the Professor Fernando Uribe. There's plenty to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, just look at some of these pictures here, and I don't know about you, but all this hysteria just makes you want to laugh. And of course, this past weekend, as I was doing laundry at home, grading exams, and also maybe catching some NFL football on Sunday, couldn't help but notice the pictures on my newsfeed from articles or even photos that people on my own social media were posting. And whether it was the recent Women's March across the river in Manhattan, or all the way down in Washington, D.C., or even at the beginning of the previous week during the onset of the confirmation hearings for potential Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And I don't know about you, but I could smell the cat urine all the way up here in Union City. Let's be honest, it smelled more like the usual doom and gloom, along with despair and desperation from many on the left. So of course, every election season, feminists and activists, along with liberals, social justice clowns, and woke fools get all into a frenzy with their daily meltdowns. And I have to tell you something, it's really entertaining. But you know what? What I find, besides entertaining, want to know what I find irritating? It's the fact that we're seeing so many of these activist groups just having, tantrums for no reason. Here's a news flash for everybody on my newsfeed and everybody watching this program. Whether it was the confirmation hearings for, once again, Amy Coney Barrett, a very distinguished jurist with an impeccable, unimpeachable morals and certainly just an impeccable character. What I'm also seeing is this sort of hysteria that we seem to be thinking that reproductive rights, and somehow for all the ladies watching this, that your uterus is in danger. Newsflash, your uterus will be fine, and there's nothing wrong with your reproductive rights. But it seems like every election cycle, again, whether it's organizations like Planned Parenthood, whether it's Women for Progress, or other, bleeding heart groups here in New Jersey, they seem to be thinking that, oh my God, let's, whip up everybody into a frenzy and stir up a panic. And the reality is, folks, that in previous decades, there have been even more conservative makeups within the Supreme Court. Now, for those of you who didn't pass this during U.S. history at some point, Roe versus Wade has been the law of the land for the last 47 years. You wouldn't know that based on these liberal activist groups. And in previous decades, there have been very conservative Supreme Courts. And never once have they rolled back Roe versus Wade, and they've never overturned it. But of course, now it's election season, so you have to make sure that, you try to raise donations, cause a frenzy on social media, and of course, make as much noise as possible. And this is what's really, really alarming about this. Because, when I look at all of these antics and these theatrics, it makes me laugh. And this is why many people like myself don't take feminists and these activists and, of course, the social justice clowns and woke fools very seriously. Because you're trying to make it seem that the world's ending, and it really isn't. And I say this to all of my female friends on social media who like to opine on one of my comments or whenever I post an article or cite a news organization or even discuss a topic openly, whether it's highlighting this program or my other media platforms. Folks, everything's going to be okay. For all the ladies out there that feel it's okay to dress up in these ridiculous costumes emulating The Handmaid's Tale, which, by the way, is a really good show on Hulu, so if you haven't caught it, I suggest you do that. But you know what? What's really alarming is just seeing grown-ass women parading around in these costumes thinking that I'm supposed to take you seriously when you're having these theatrics. No one's going to do that. True feminists should really be calling this out and denouncing this behavior because you know what? This is hurting your cause. When you're having, again, grown-ass cat ladies taking to the streets, sort of screaming to the heavens that, oh my God, my uterus is in danger and their reproductive rights are under attack. They're not. Okay? We're not living in some Middle Eastern country here, folks. Okay? So let's get it together. And also at the same time, let's also call out some of the frenzy that's stirred up by activist groups here in the state of New Jersey, for example. We'll go with Planned Parenthood. Now, again, as I mentioned, what I find extremely irritating also is the gift of tax dollars to this organization. Because for as long as I've known, it's become a central plank for the Democratic Party, especially in the modern age. Earlier this year, the state of New Jersey, via the legislature and, of course, via the signature of Governor Phil Murphy, decided to make a tremendous increase in the funding to Planned Parenthood from some $7.5 million the previous year to now $17 million. And I don't know about you, but this is really scary. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it's one of those things where I see that Planned Parenthood at the beginning of this year made it very clear that they want to invest $45 million to help Democratic candidates in battleground states, which include, of course, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. For an organization that has $45 million laying around, what the hell is it doing taking in taxpayer dollars here in New Jersey? But once again, as I've talked about in previous episodes, this is why Trenton is tone deaf. Whether it's the legislature and Governor Murphy allocating $6.2 million for a legal fund to help illegals, right, fight deportations, which I think is absolutely rich in its irony, or helping illegals somehow become legal. I don't know about you, but this shouldn't be happening on the taxpayer dollar. Same thing with Planned Parenthood. Listen, I'm not here to tell you where to go get your pap smear or where to go get other procedures done, but you know what? We all know what Planned Parenthood does on a regular basis, whether it's statewide or nationally. I don't know about you, but my tax dollars shouldn't subsidize it. And I know many of you will agree with that. When you start looking into their books and start looking into their practices, I think you'll all be concurring with me that our taxpayer dollars shouldn't be subsidizing Planned Parenthood here in the Garden State or anywhere else in the country. And one of the things, folks, is that, at a time when high taxes, whether it's property taxes or egregious spending in Trenton, are killing New Jerseyans each and every day, it seems like Democrats are trying to step over each other's throats in who can tax, and spend. When, when millions of dollars should be going to homeowners and citizens instead of bleeding heart organizations, because we all know this is the Democratic business model here in New Jersey. Give big tax dollars to liberal organizations like Planned Parenthood, the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, Make the Road New Jersey, even Women for Progress, for example, if they're asking for a grant. And of course, as well, public sector unions, which in turn spend some of the exact tax dollars that they got gifted to help keep Democrats in office. Folks, it's nothing more than institutional corruption. Now, again, they're justifying it as helping women. Quite frankly, what they're doing is treating taxpayers with the utmost of contempt. I see through it, and I know many of you do too. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the now 4-time award-winning podcast Talk on the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson, was renowned orthopedic specialist Dr. Victor Ortiz, representing the KL Orthopedic Center, which has various locations throughout North Jersey. We talked for almost an hour on a variety of different topics concerning health and wellness, and quite frankly, what are some of the orthopedic needs he comes across on a daily basis. First and foremost, we discussed what's the most prevalent type of pain that he's treating, not just at his practices, but that he's reading about in modern medicine. Let's check out what he had to say.
Dr. Ortiz, let me ask you this, because again, I played sports when I was younger as well, and as you get older, obviously, everyone says after 40, well, I'll tell you, every little thing starts to hurt. Your heel, your knee, your hamstring, your shoulders, everything. It seems as you get a little bit older, you start to experience those really annoying pains and aches. Right now, in the field you're working in, what do you see as like the most prevalent injuries right now for both men and women?
Yeah, so I think the most prevalent complaint, the chief complaint that we most commonly see is going to be back pain. You get lower back pain, a lot of lifting, a lot of carrying. Every time you might be twisting or doing certain activities and you get this muscle tightness, muscle spasm. It's usually one of the most common reasons for people to go to the emergency room, because they get this severe low back pain or neck pain that is disabling, is incapacitating, and leads people to have to go to the emergency room. I think that would be around, in the over 40-year-old age group, that would be probably the chief complaint, the most common chief complaint. Besides that, shoulders and knees are usually the other ones that are very commonly seen in patients over, 40 years old that usually, have a more sedentary lifestyle, not being active every day. And, when you start doing stuff, you can get soreness in those joints and go to see a doctor because of that.
Secondly, we discussed the importance of avoiding some types of pain medication when at all possible. As we all know, a lot of us like to self-medicate, and whether it's a sports injury, a back spasm, or anything else that we might have to go to an orthopedic specialist for, hey, he raises the importance of trying to avoid pain medications when at all possible. Let's check out what he had to say about this avoidance.
Doctor, you mentioned about anti-inflammatories and STEM meds. I've had this debate all the time with friends of mine. I'm always someone that, if I can avoid taking medication, that's the best route I like to go. I mean, it's good to have it there, but if you can avoid it, I always tell friends, hey, listen, try not to be dependent on pills. Try to work things out organically, whether it's, as you mentioned, heat pads, or like I mentioned to you, I love going to get massages I go on Groupon. I'll find some good massages that are affordable locally. I'll go maybe every couple of weeks. Obviously, because of COVID, doctor, that's changed a little bit, right? Like pre-COVID, a pretty common thing to do. After COVID, it's been a little more difficult. What would you tell our audience tonight about, if you can avoid pain medications, why not do that?
Totally. I think there's every medication, everything that you take to your body has can cause an adverse reaction. And a medication as simple as an Advil, you can develop like an anti-inflammatory medication, can develop ulcers in your stomach that can be detrimental to your health. So I think it's very important to try to avoid medications at all extents because it's just everything in life. There's risk, and the only way that we make that risk zero is not taking them. So I think it's like a last resource option. It is something that we need to use when you have that intractable pain, when you have exhausted all the modalities like the heat in the eyes, the massage, acupuncture, chiropractic, and if we need it, we need it. But I think it's important in life, to try to stay away from any type of medications because they have their side effects and they can be bad.
Lastly, we discussed the impact that CBD oils and medicinal marijuana have right now on his profession. When it comes to pain management, many of us decide to self-medicate, and if we can go to a doctor and have any of the aforementioned prescribed to us, we'll do that. He shared his thoughts about whether or not this is the right route to take when it comes to pain management today.
And that's really, really important because, as we mentioned, as you get older, sort of managing pain becomes much more difficult. And doctor, let me ask you this, because here in New Jersey, as we know in recent years, we've seen different laws go into effect, and many within the Latino community, I think especially, have looked at alternatives, for example, like CBD oils, which we know, again, based on science and based on medicine, we've read conclusively that CBD oils do work. They've become very attractive alternatives for not just Latinos, but I think people in general as they get older, when it comes to back pain, when it comes to muscle stiffness or anything else. Is that something that you as a doctor, would you recommend that, or is that just a case-by-case basis when it comes to dealing with patients? Or have you read that? Have you read enough literature that says to you, yeah, Fernando, CBD oils do work. They have a good success rate, and it's something that, if necessary, I would say that to a patient. Or do you avoid that?
Yeah, so what I have a lot of patients that come and they say that I do the CBD oil, it works great for me, and I give them two opinions, and one of them is, there's research, there's stuff out there that has advocate for that, but usually it's a low-level evidence. It's not like a randomized controlled trial. It's not like a high level of evidence to support this. And that's the science behind it, and as a physician, I have to give you the evidence-based medicine. But at the same time, there's common sense. If the patient tells me this works for me, I always tell them, if you're doing it and it's working, keep doing it. Don't change a winning formula. If it's working, it's working. And if a patient asks me, do you think I should try it? And I always say, I have had patients that have a great experience with that. I think it's worth a try. Because if it works and you feel better, you're good. You don't have to go through medications or do other stuff. So I would always encourage the patient that if they want to try it, to go ahead and do it, because there has been a positive feedback in our patient population about using the CBD oil.
Now, doctor, the reason I ask you that is because, again, we're seeing that, especially in New Jersey, after medicinal marijuana laws were passed, I think in the last 4 years, it's become an alternative. I think many individuals, regardless of socioeconomic levels, have looked at it and said, you know what, I don't want to deal with pain medications. There's a high level of addiction to Percocet, Vicodin, those other medications. And I think a lot of people say, you know what, if I can go to a doctor and I can get a prescription of medicinal marijuana prescribed to me, I would rather do that. I would rather use that as an alternative than rely on pain pills. Have you heard that argument? And what do you say to patients, again, would come to you and say, doctor, you know what, I don't want to deal with pain medication. I'd rather get, medicinal marijuana. Do you try to encourage that, discourage it, or you don't have an opinion?
So I haven't had that type of patient yet, in my practice specifically. I have heard about it. I have read about it. My opinion about it is that I think it works. I think it's something that works. I think that the opioids are real. And it doesn't like another pandemic. All the opioids that what we're seeing, people are dying, people are very dependent, and medical marijuana has come to fill a role in the pain, dealing with anxiety, and dealing with people in their end stage with metastatic cancer, where they have severe pain. They have been using for pain control, and it's bringing good outcomes, taking patients away from all those narcotics. Again, it's always going to be a challenging topic because you have different personalities, different type of opinions. But I think that it has been shown. That's why more states are doing them, that it works. So my opinion is in the patient that qualifies for that criteria, and we can absolutely take them away from narcotics, from opioids. I think it's a good option.
It was a very informative episode for nearly an hour, which of course you can catch it in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can listen to the episode anywhere and anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Once again, these are exclusives I'll continue to bring you in 2020 because it's not only about politics, but it's about issues that matter most to our community. Of course, health and wellness is right at the top of the list. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And a special shout out to John Hines from the Hudson County View for his report on this story. And sadly, COVID-19 cases have caused closures at both North Bergen High School and my alma mater, Memorial High School in West New York. Now, certainly as a result of some recent COVID-19 cases, closures happened at both high schools within the last week, but according to school officials at both institutions, facilities will be opening in the next week. Now, according to a statement sent to the Hudson County View, quote, a Memorial High School staff member tested positive for COVID-19 over the weekend, and this was sent in an email to teachers within the last week. Out of an abundance of caution and in consultation with the local health department, Memorial High School and its staff will only telework coming up in this past week and will allow time for the custodial staff to complete a very deep, thorough cleansing and disinfectation of the buildings in general. Now, sources with knowledge of the situation at both schools who spoke, of course, under the condition of anonymity, said there have been at least 4 coronavirus cases at Memorial High School since the school session resumed last month. Now, while many students are still learning virtually, teachers as well as staff are giving their lessons from their respective schools and classrooms. Additionally, a North Bergen High School teacher tested positive last week, which led to the school being closed early and has remained shut down since for sanitation and for safety purposes. Now, a North Bergen Board of Education spokesman did not immediately return an inquiry to the Hudson County View seeking a comment, but sources said the school is expected to reopen by the end of the week. Now, of course, as we have seen on recent social media posts, Governor Phil Murphy indicated that he's hopeful that New Jersey won't be going into a second lockdown, citing increased efforts for COVID-19 testing and contact tracing as cases are on the rise throughout the state of New Jersey. I don't know about you folks, but I can't say this enough. Please wear your masks. Please practice responsible social distancing. Please wash your hands often. Again, try to eat as healthy as you can. Work out when you can. Just get some exercise and try to stay as active and healthy, again, during this pandemic, because as we all know, it's possible. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm a PhD, but I'm not a medical doctor. But I know enough that, hey, every winter season, especially with flu season coming up, anything is possible. And we know that during this pandemic, things have been absolutely unpredictable here in the Garden State. So I strongly urge you to, again, take every precaution you can, especially for our kids and for our elderly residents among us, and even for our own family members, because listen, the last thing we want to do is see a spike during the upcoming winter months. And another local story for your consideration involves New Jersey State Assemblyman Nicholas Ciravalotti and expressing his deep concerns with the recent move by Governor Murphy. Once again, a shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, Legislative 31 District Assemblyman Nicholas Ciravalotti, who represents Bayonne and most of the south side of Jersey City, expressed this week that he's, quote, extremely disappointed that Governor Phil Murphy blindsided him by vetoing a bill that would have delayed New Jersey quality single accountability continuum testing in certain districts. Now, the Assemblyman went on to say, quote, I am extremely disappointed that Governor Murphy decided to absolute veto Bill A-4006. a bipartisan bill that passed the legislature with no opposition. At no time during the legislative process did the administration provide comment regarding the bill. The bill simply delayed reporting requirements of school districts for NJQ SAC for this academic year. Now, our schools are dealing with multiple issues related to COVID-19, and their only focus must be on providing an education for their students safely in the new environment we find ourselves in due to the pandemic. Now, the bill, which was sponsored by Assembly members Ralph Caputo, a Democrat out of the 28th Legislative District, Pedro Mejia, another Democrat from the 32nd Legislative District right here in Hudson County, Nellie Poo, a Democrat out of the 35th Legislative District, and Shirley Turner, a Democrat out of the 15th Legislative District, cleared the Assembly Education Committee back in June and ultimately passed the full Assembly and State Senate. Now, specifically, the legislation asked to postpone the NJQ SAC reviews scheduled for the 2019-2020 school year that were not completed because of the COVID-19 school closures or those scheduled for the 2020-2021 school year. Instead, those reviews would have been rescheduled for the 2021-2022 academic year. Assemblyman Chair Velotti continued that the veto, quote, came without negotiation or warning, and said being blindsided in such a manner is unacceptable. Now, due to the complex and time-consuming nature of the reviews, Governor Murphy said in his veto statement that it made little sense to do 2 reviews in a 3-year time frame. Quote, requiring certain districts to undergo 2 reviews in 3 years is redundant and unnecessary, particularly at a time when districts are focusing resources on COVID-19 response measures, again, once the governor's office reporting. Folks, I have to tell you, I think this is absolutely rich because whether it's Governor Murphy or many liberals in the legislature, when they want to cry poverty or cry fiscal responsibility, which is rare, this is one of those times when they shouldn't be. Again, they find money for some of these feel-good projects, which we all know that liberals love here in New Jersey. But when it comes to testing in all of our school districts, which we all know have been gravely affected by COVID-19, I would argue that we shouldn't be pinching pennies or trying to sort of nickel and dime this process. Again, I'm disappointed in Governor Murphy in his veto, but cheers to Assemblyman Nicholas Velotti right here in Hudson County for not only representing his constituents with honor and distinction, but at the same time too, sort of just raising a common sense concern, which I would argue doesn't warrant a veto. But as we all know, sometimes Trenton tends to be tone deaf, even during a pandemic. Lastly, I want to give a shout out once again for Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in October. This past weekend, I was proud to partner with the Union City PBA Local Number 8 for a professor's quest to save breasts, as we sold dozens of t-shirts, caps, and pink masks to raise funds again for the American Cancer Society. You'll be happy to know we raised over $1,000 this past weekend on a beautiful Saturday autumn day, again, right across the Hudson Bergen Light Rail stop on 49th Street and Bergen Line Avenue. Men, women, and children alike came over to the table, said hi to all the great men and women in blue from the Union City Police Department, as well as yours truly, as raising funds for the American Cancer Society continues to be very important. And folks, I cannot say enough about why this cause is so dire and why we need to continue raising awareness, not just throughout the month of October, but all year round. Since 2008, I've been proud to partner with the American Cancer Society in my own campaign, once again, titled A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts. You'll be happy to know I've raised $50,348 in this process. Of course, during COVID-19, fundraising and having my usual, parties and events to raise money has been proven to be virtually impossible. But it hasn't stopped me from raising money online and having wonderful sponsors, as you can see there on the promotional flyer. I can't say enough about the good work that the American Cancer Society does, more specifically, the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer campaign. Whether it's about early detection, resources available to all communities here in New Jersey or throughout the country, you can always find it by going to the American Cancer Society's website, which is www.cancer.org. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and, of course, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't say it enough, whether it's a family member, a colleague, a neighbor, anybody. No one deserves to endure the horrors of breast cancer, because at some point we've all known someone that's been deeply affected by it. I've grown up seeing people lose loved ones, friends, and other family members because of this dreaded disease. While the American Cancer Society has made significant strides, ironically, in their efforts for new research, for a new vaccine, and other, again, available medications to everyone infected by breast cancer, it just doesn't say enough about the hard work that they put in each and every day. So if possible, folks, you can look up a professor's quest to save breasts 2020 online via the American Cancer Society. Donate whatever you can. And remember, your donation is safe, secure, and indeed tax deductible. Together, ladies and gentlemen, let's do our part to defeat breast cancer once and for all. I can't say again how thankful I am for my partnership with the Union City PBA Local Number 8, because I'll tell you, these brave men and women in blue do a great job every day, not just only keeping Union City safe, but also raising awareness about the impact of breast cancer, not just for women, but men too, because they can be diagnosed with this dreaded disease, and it happens each and every year. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you can, I know times are tough during this pandemic, but even a single few dollars goes a long way in helping provide resources, again, and any care possible to those afflicted with breast cancer. So once again, if you can Google A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts 2020, you can donate there, and also look me up on all of my social media, whether it be on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And trust me, all the funds are going for a very, very good cause. I know many of you remain skeptical about philanthropy and charity even during a pandemic, but I can assure you that for over 100 years, the American Cancer Society has been working extremely hard to help those in need to overcome cancer and ultimately defeat this dreaded killer. We'll continue covering this throughout the month of October right here on Talking Politics, as well as my other media platforms. So folks, let's do our part to help stop breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week. Now more than ever, folks, independent media is so important, and we're happy to represent that here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. Don't forget to check out all the excellent programming brought to you by both by going to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air on Facebook, and follow them both on Instagram and Twitter. And remember that live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can listen to the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talk on the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson. I'll continue to bring you those exclusives, whether it's elected officials, activists, noted doctors, and other important members of the community, because you, the viewing public, deserve to know what's going on, not just in Hudson County, but throughout the entire state of New Jersey. I'll be happy to keep doing that throughout 2020 and well into 2021. Folks, check me out on all of my social media. Drop me a message whenever you can, what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show. Trust me, I love all of your comments and your feedback, and of course the encouragement when it comes to doing great media programs like this one. And never forget, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it is always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.